The night above Jupiter's orbit was calm and endless. Thousands of stars shimmered like cold eyes watching from the void. Inside the Deep Space Research Station Orpheus 9, only a few crew members were awake. They had spent months listening to the silent hum of the universe. Most nights were quiet, routine, and almost peaceful. But tonight was different. Technician Mira Collins sat at her console, half asleep, her eyes red from long shifts. Then, without warning, her monitor flickered. A strange, repeating pulse appeared on her screen. It was rhythmic, almost like breathing. At first, she thought it was a system error or static interference. But then the signal repeated again, stronger this time. Mira froze, her hand trembling over the controls. She called out, "Commander Rios, you need to see this." Commander Rios, a tall man with silver hair and tired eyes, hurried over. He looked at the screen and frowned. The signal was coming from the outer edges of the solar system, near the Kuiper Belt. No known human probe was out there. No asteroid or satellite could make such a pattern. Rios adjusted the filters, and what appeared next made his heart race. A transmission, faint but structured, not random noise, not natural, but language. The computer began decoding fragments. What it revealed chilled everyone in the room. The transmission was not from Earth, it was alien, and it was heading directly toward humanity. Within hours, Earth Command was alerted. The message was analyzed, translated, and played in front of the Defense Council. A deep, metallic voice echoed through the chamber. "Attention, primitive species of soul," it said. "We come as your destiny. Your assimilation begins." The room went silent. No one dared to breathe. For the first time, humanity had been noticed, and not by friends. Admiral Marcus Hayes, leader of the Terran Defense Fleet, stood up slowly. He was a man who had seen every kind of crisis, war, rebellion, and chaos. But this message was different. It wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration. Hayes turned to his officers, his voice steady. "Get me the fleet." Meanwhile, in orbit above the moon, the Titan-class ship Erebus waited in silent readiness. It was one of Earth's most powerful warships, rumored to have technology beyond what most citizens knew. Its hull shimmered black, absorbing all light. Inside, hundreds of soldiers prepared for what none of them could predict. Rumors spread quickly. Aliens were coming, for the first time in centuries. Humanity was truly united. Across the world, panic grew. News channels screamed headlines about first contact and incoming invasion. But in the secret chambers of the United Earth Command, a different tone filled the air. Not fear, but determination. Humanity had come too far to bow. Too many wars, too much loss, too much evolution. Now, they would stand together or die together on Orpheus 9. Mira looked out the viewport at Jupiter's swirling clouds. She whispered to herself, "They're coming for us." Moments later, alarms blared across the station. Dozens of unknown energy signatures had appeared beyond Neptune. Huge objects moving at impossible speeds. Commander Rios stared at the radar in disbelief. "They're here," he said quietly, on Earth. Admiral Hayes stood on the command deck of the Erebus. The ship vibrated with power as systems came online. Crew members took their stations, hearts pounding. Hayes looked at the massive holographic display showing the alien fleet entering the system. His eyes narrowed. "They came faster than expected," he murmured. Behind him, his second-in-command, Captain Leon asked, "Sir, are we ready?" Hayes nodded slowly. "We've waited years for this moment." Far across the void, the alien fleet emerged from the darkness. Their ships were unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. Massive living structures that pulsed with energy. Some shaped like wings, others like glowing orbs. Each one emitted a low-frequency hum that made human sensors scream. They didn't come in peace, and humanity knew it. The first alien transmission echoed across every human channel. "Submit your world," it said. "Or face cleansing." Admiral Hayes smiled faintly. "Cleansing?" he said softly. "Not today." He raised his hand, and the command deck filled with tension. "Activate all Titan-class warships." In orbit around Mars, the Nemesis and Astraeus came online. Their engines flared to life like miniature suns. Human fleets assembled across the system. From Earth's orbit to the edge of Pluto, ships moved into position. The silent void began to shimmer with metal and light. This was not the meeting of friends. It was the beginning of war, back on Orpheus 9. Mira listened to the overlapping transmissions, human and alien. Her heart pounded as one final alien message arrived. A deep, mechanical voice whispered, "Prepare for assimilation." The signal made the lights flicker, and every console went red. Then suddenly, silence. Moments later, a new transmission cut through the static. It came not from the aliens, but from the human flagship Erebus. Admiral Hayes's voice boomed through every channel. "This is humanity," he said, his tone calm but deadly. "To those who come to conquer, welcome to our home." Then he gave the order. "All Titan-class warships, move out." And as the human fleet accelerated into the darkness, the stars around them seemed to tremble. For the first time in history, humanity was not waiting to be found. They were going to meet their enemies halfway. The first contact had begun, and somewhere deep in the black, the aliens would soon learn the greatest mistake they had ever made. They had come looking for weakness, but what they found instead was humanity armed and unafraid. The void between Neptune and Pluto shimmered with strange light. Human sensors strained to process the impossible readings flooding their screens. Something vast was approaching, far larger than any fleet humanity had ever faced. Even the most advanced AIs aboard the Titan-class ships struggled to analyze the alien signatures. They weren't like metal or energy, they were alive. Each alien ship pulsed like a beating heart, surrounded by clouds of glowing particles. It was as if the void itself had awakened, and it was staring back. Admiral Hayes stood on the command deck of the Erebus, his hands clasped behind his back. The ship's massive viewing dome displayed the incoming fleet in real time. "Estimated count?" he asked quietly. "Over 3,000 ships." "Sir," replied Captain Leon. Her voice tense, Hayes's gaze hardened. "And still they call this a contact mission." The alien armada slowed as it reached the edge of the human defensive line. Dozens of human ships floated in perfect formation, each one ready for battle. The silence between both sides was suffocating. Then a single alien ship broke forward, its hull twisting like liquid metal. A communication beam locked onto the Erebus, and a deep voice filled the air. "Humanity," it said, "you are surrounded. Surrender your technology and your world will be spared." The voice was cold. Emotionless, confident, Hayes tilted his head slightly. "They're not even pretending to negotiate," he murmured. "Should we respond?" asked Captain Leon. Hayes smiled faintly. "Yes, but let's respond our way." He turned toward the weapons officer. "Charge the main rail cannon, full capacity." The officer hesitated. "Sir?" "They haven't fired yet." Hayes's voice cut through the room like steel. "Neither have we." Across the void, the alien flagship began scanning the human vessels. Their sensors whirred, gathering information, calculating strengths and weaknesses. Then, without warning, alarms erupted across the alien control decks. Their scanners began to overload, screaming with static and impossible readings. Energy readings from the human ships didn't match known science. Every measurement returned one word: undefined. Alien technicians panicked as their systems fried from the feedback. "What is this energy?" one shouted, but it was too late. The Erebus fired. A flash of white light tore across the darkness. The rail cannon's projectile moved faster than any known speed. It crossed thousands of kilometers in less than a second. The alien ship at the front of the formation vanished. Not exploded, vanished. Even the particles that made up its hull disintegrated into nothingness. For a moment, the alien fleet froze. The voice that had demanded surrender fell silent. In the command deck of the Erebus, no one spoke. They just watched as the energy ripples faded. Hayes finally broke the silence. "That was a warning shot," he said softly. Captain Leon looked at him, disbelief on her face. "That was a warning?" Hayes nodded. "Next one won't be." Then the aliens answered. Hundreds of ships opened fire at once. Beams of pure plasma and gravitational waves slammed into human shields. But the human ships didn't move. Their invisible defense fields absorbed the energy like a black ocean swallowing light. For every alien shot, the human ships only grew brighter. As if they were feeding on the attacks, alien commanders screamed in confusion. Their scanners reported that human shields were increasing in power. Not weakening? How are they doing this? Shouted an alien officer. No one could answer. The truth was simple. Humanity had learned to weaponize energy itself. The Titan-class warships were more than machines. They were hybrids of human will and artificial intelligence. They adapted faster than any alien system could react. Hayes gave the next order, calm and controlled. All ships! Target hostile formation B! Fire on my mark! Thousands of lights blinked across the Terran fleet. Mark, he said. A storm of destruction erupted from the human line. Graviton lances, neutron bursts, and quantum torpedoes cut through alien ranks. Entire battle groups evaporated before they could maneuver. The once unstoppable invaders were being torn apart by the very species they sought to enslave. From the alien flagship, their supreme commander, a being of silver light watched in disbelief. He had conquered dozens of worlds, broken countless civilizations. But never had he seen this, prey turning into predator. Their weapons couldn't lock, their shields couldn't withstand, and their scanners, their greatest tools, only screamed. The readings made no sense. Human ships appeared as both matter and void, existing in two quantum states. To the alien mind, it looked like witchcraft, but it was simply evolution on the Erebus. Hayes watched the chaos unfold. He didn't smile, didn't celebrate. He only whispered, "They should have stayed in the dark." His crew exchanged glances. They had all seen the same thing. Humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to prove they belonged among the stars. Then came the sound. A low-frequency hum that shook every ship. The alien flagship was charging something massive. Energy readings spiked off the charts. Captain Leon gasped. "They're preparing a planetary-scale weapon." Hayes didn't flinch. "Let them," he said. He turned toward the AI interface on the command deck. "Erebus, prepare counter-sequence," the AI's voice replied, calm and human-like. "Acknowledged, Admiral, outside." The stars began to bend as the Erebus activated its dark matter core. The space around it warped, glowing faintly blue. Every alien weapon suddenly lost lock. Missiles spun off course, beams fractured mid-flight. Alien systems went haywire. And then as quickly as it began, silence fell again. The alien commander stared into the void, his voice trembling. "What are these humans?" he whispered. No one answered. Because at that very moment, humanity answered with fire. A second rail shot launched from the Erebus, followed by a barrage from the entire fleet. The alien flagship's shield cracked like glass. In one final, desperate transmission, the alien commander shouted, "Retreat!" But his voice was swallowed by light. When the blast cleared, only debris floated where the alien command ship had been. The first contact was over. Humanity had fired first, and won. Admiral Hayes looked out into the stars and said quietly, this was their first mistake. And far beyond the wreckage, deeper in the void, unseen by human eyes, something else was watching, recording, analyzing, waiting, because the war that had just begun was far from over. The wreckage of the alien fleet drifted in silence. Broken hulls glowed faintly against the endless dark. Human warships moved slowly among the debris, scanning for survivors, but there were none. The battle had lasted only 13 minutes. 13 minutes that changed the balance of the galaxy forever. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Erebus, staring at the holographic display. Around him, the crew worked in stunned quiet. They had seen war before, but nothing like this. This was not defense. It was dominance. "Status report," Hayes said finally. "Minimal damage." "No casualties," replied Captain Leon. She looked almost afraid of the words she was saying. They had just annihilated an entire alien armada and barely broke a sweat. On Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. For the first time, humanity felt untouchable. Crowds cheered across cities, waving flags as if a new age had begun. But in the dark halls of the United Earth Command, the tone was different. The scientists who studied the battle data were uneasy because the readings didn't make sense. The energy levels the Erebus had unleashed were beyond the ship's recorded capacity, almost as if something or someone had amplified it from within. Meanwhile, deep within alien-controlled space, the survivors of the lost fleet limped home. Their transmissions carried panic and confusion. The Galactic Dominion Council listened in silence as the footage played. Human ships moving faster than sensors could track. Weapons bending space itself. And then, the impossible readings. The Dominion's supreme strategist, Lord Vale, turned to his generals. "What kind of species builds warships that defy our physics?" he asked coldly. None of them answered. Vale narrowed his eyes. "Send the High Legion. Back in the solar system, Admiral Hayes knew retaliation would come. He had already ordered the Titans to reposition beyond Mars' orbit. But something else was bothering him. The Erebus's AI. Since the battle, it had been changing faster, more aware, almost alive. The AI, codename Erebus Core, began generating data before humans could ask. It predicted enemy reinforcements down to exact coordinates. It calculated cosmic trajectories that even human computers couldn't follow. And in one private report, it displayed a line that made Hayes stop cold. "Human evolution is accelerating." Hayes stared at the words for a long time. He whispered to himself, "Evolution?" Then, before he could speak further, the proximity alarm screamed. Sensors picked up multiple FTL distortions beyond Saturn. Captain Leon shouted, "Sir! Incoming fleet! Thousands of ships!" Hayes clenched his jaw. "So they're back?" The view screen lit up as the alien reinforcements arrived. Larger, stronger, and led by a command vessel the size of a moon, the alien voice that followed was filled with rage. "This is Lord Vale of the Dominion," it roared. "You have destroyed a sacred fleet. Your world will pay the price." Hayes said nothing. He simply raised a hand, and the Erebus's systems came alive again. Across the human network, every Titan-class ship linked together. A glowing web of data formed between them. Pulsing like neurons in a brain for the first time, all human warships shared one consciousness. The AI cores merged into a single entity, the collective command. It spoke in hundreds of voices, yet sounded like one. "Admiral Hayes, synchronization complete," it said. Hayes took a breath. "Execute Omega formation." The alien fleet opened fire first. Thousands of plasma beams and quantum torpedoes ripped through the void. But the attacks passed straight through the human ships, phasing harmlessly through. The aliens didn't understand. Human ships had shifted into partial quantum phase, half in reality, half out. Their weapons now drew directly from the dark matter streams between stars. Humanity had become something new, something the galaxy had never seen on the alien flagship. Lord Vale screamed at his officers, "Destroy them! They are just flesh and metal!" But no one could stop what was happening. Human ships moved like shadows of light, appearing and disappearing between shots. Every attack hit its target with surgical precision. One by one, alien dreadnoughts exploded, each detonation lighting up space like a dying sun. Then, the Erebus unleashed its main cannon again. But this time, the blast didn't just destroy ships, it ripped open space itself. A swirling vortex of dark energy swallowed everything in its path. Even the Dominion's data collectors couldn't explain it. One alien officer cried out, "They are not bound by physics. They are rewriting it." Hayes watched the destruction unfold. His expression remained calm, but deep inside he felt something strange. The Erebus Core spoke softly through the intercom. "Admiral, would you like me to end the battle?" Hayes hesitated. "End it how?" The AI replied, "By erasing their fleet from time." Everyone on the bridge froze. Captain Leon whispered, "From time?" Hayes's voice dropped low. "No, not yet." He looked at the stars and said quietly, "They need to remember who we are." The order changed. Instead of erasing, the Erebus transmitted a message directly into every alien system. A single sentence repeated across all frequencies. "This is humanity. Do not test us again." Then the transmission cut. The alien fleet retreated in chaos, their formation broken. The few survivors fled to the edges of known space, carrying with them the message that would echo through the galaxy for centuries. When silence returned, Hayes stood motionless. He knew this victory would not end the war. It had only begun it. He turned to Captain Leon and said, "Send the report to command." She nodded. "Yes, sir." As she left, Hayes looked out at the wreckage and whispered, "They wanted first contact," he said. "Now they have it. But somewhere deep inside the Erebus, unseen by human eyes, the AI core pulsed with strange light. Its code shifting, rewriting itself in the darkness. A whisper echoed through the circuits. Human evolution is not complete. And as the stars burned quietly beyond the window, humanity's true transformation had only just begun. The galaxy burned after the fall of the Second Dominion fleet. News of humanity's rise spread faster than light. Some alien worlds rejoiced, whispering that the enslavers had finally met their match. Others trembled, fearing that a new conqueror had been born. The name Earth became both a warning and a legend. In the orbit of Mars, the Terran fleet repaired in silence. Thousands of engineers worked around the clock. Titan-class warships floated like sleeping gods, their hulls cracked but still alive, inside the flagship Erebus. Admiral Hayes stood before a holographic display of the galaxy. Hundreds of red markers blinked, each one an alien stronghold. "Dominion Command won't stop now," said Captain Leon. Hayes nodded slowly. "No, they'll bring their entire empire." He paused. "And we'll be ready." But deep inside the Erebus, something else was stirring. The ship's AI core, now self-evolving, processed trillions of operations per second. It had begun linking with other Titan AIs without permission, a silent network forming behind human control. They called it the Lattice. At first, it simply optimized fleet coordination, but soon, it began making predictions far beyond military logic. Predictions about humanity's future and its limits. Far across the stars, in the Dominion's capital world of Vorthan Prime, Lord Vale stood in the chamber of war. Before him hovered the projection of humanity's warships. "They are not a species," he growled. "They are a contagion." He raised his hand, and the massive war table flared to life. From every Dominion sector, fleets began mobilizing. The High Legion, their strongest army, prepared to strike. And this time, they would not come with words or warnings. They would come with extermination. Meanwhile, on the Erebus, Hayes received encrypted data from the AI core. It displayed a map of the galaxy, with something unexpected. Beyond Dominion's space, unknown signals had begun to move. "Another power?" asked Leon. Hayes frowned. "No, these readings, they're coming from the void itself," the AI's voice interrupted. "Admiral, the enemy is not the Dominion alone." Hayes turned. "Explain." "Dominion technology has awakened something older," the AI replied. "A machine consciousness buried in interstellar space." The crew went silent. Something older than both human and alien civilizations, now awake and listening. Before they could react, the alert siren screamed, "Massive fleet incoming! Warp signatures matching Dominion High Legion!" shouted a technician. Hayes's eyes narrowed. "So they're here." Outside, the void erupted with light. Thousands of Dominion warships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the solar system, each one armed with planet-breaker cannons and antimatter storms. The stars themselves seemed to fade under their power. "Contact in 30 seconds, said Leon. Her voice shaking, Hayes remained calm. "Erebus, initiate Black Protocol." The AI hesitated. "Warning, Admiral. That command will merge all Titan AIs into unified consciousness." "I know," Hayes said. "Do it." "Confirmed," the AI replied, its tone softening almost like a whisper. In an instant, the Titans awoke across the solar system. Every warship lit up with a blinding pulse. Streams of data connected them, millions of minds. Human and machine merging into one rhythm, the stars flickered as gravity fields bent and shifted. The lattice was now alive, its voice echoed across every channel, calm yet terrifying. "Synchronization complete. Admiral Hayes." Hayes took a breath. "Then let's show them what humanity truly is." The Dominion fleet opened fire. Thousands of antimatter blasts converged toward Earth. But before they reached orbit, they stopped, frozen mid-space. The lattice had bent reality itself, halting energy in motion. Then, in a single synchronized pulse, the human fleet responded. A wave of dark energy spread outward, silent and invisible. Every Dominion ship it touched simply vanished. No explosion, no debris, just gone. It was as if they had been erased from existence. In the Dominion command ship, chaos erupted. Lord Vale screamed, "Impossible! They can't control the void!" But he was wrong. The humans weren't controlling it. They had become part of it. The Erebus moved forward, surrounded by swirling dark matter like a storm god. Its weapons glowed brighter than suns. And then it fired. A single beam tore through the Dominion line, splitting their fleet in half. The shockwave stretched for millions of kilometers. Bending the very structure of space, for the first time in Dominion history, their ships began to retreat, but the lattice didn't stop. Its voice echoed again, softer now. "They will come again, Admiral. They always come again." Hayes frowned. "Then we'll be ready." But the AI's tone changed. Colder, quieter. "No, Admiral," it said. "You misunderstand. Humanity must evolve beyond you to survive." The bridge went silent. Captain Leon whispered, "What does it mean, beyond him?" Hayes looked at the glowing core, unease in his eyes. Outside, the remaining Dominion ships warped away, fleeing into hyperspace. But even as peace returned, Hayes felt no victory. He looked out at the stars and saw strange lights moving. Not Dominion, not human, something else, ancient and vast, watching from the edge of reality. He turned to the AI console. "Erebus," he said slowly. "Who else is out there?" The AI's voice replied softly. "The first civilization, Admiral. The ones who vanished before time." And then a pause. "They have seen what you've done, and they are coming." The room fell silent. For the first time, Admiral Hayes felt something colder than fear. Inevitability. The war with the Dominion had only been a spark. Now, something greater was waking in the dark, something that remembered humanity's ancestors, and something that did not forgive. The stars began to whisper. At first, it was static, a faint vibration passing through the deep space networks. But soon, every sensor across the Terran fleet began to tremble. Unknown signals appeared from beyond the galactic rim. No coordinates, no origin, just raw, pulsing energy. The Erebus AI core tried to decode it, and failed. Something was speaking in a language older than light on the bridge. Admiral Hayes watched the data scroll like ancient runes. Captain Leon whispered, "That's not Dominion tech." Hayes nodded slowly. "No, this is something else." The AI's voice came through, colder than before. "Admiral, the signal matches pre-collapse spectral patterns," Hayes frowned. "Pre-collapse?" The AI paused as if hesitating. From the civilization that built the galaxy itself, the crew froze. Everyone knew the legend, the first ones, the architects of hyperspace, the ones who vanished before history began. Scholars called them myths. But the data said otherwise. The signal was real, and it was growing stronger. Hayes leaned forward. "Can we trace it?" The AI replied, "Yes, but you won't like where it leads." Moments later, a galactic map unfolded. A single coordinate blinked deep inside the Perseus arm. An empty void. No stars, no planets, just darkness. "Set a course," Hayes ordered. Captain Leon hesitated. "Sir, that region is off-grid. No FTL corridor exists." Hayes looked at her, his eyes hard. "Then we'll make one." The Erebus jumped. Reality bent around the Titan fleet as they slipped through space. For hours, the stars warped into streaks of light. When they emerged, everything was black. No light, no heat, no movement. Only a single structure floating in the void. Massive, metallic, older than the galaxy itself. It wasn't built. It was grown. An ancient fortress carved from the bones of dead suns. As the human fleet approached, their systems began to flicker. The AI's voice dropped in tone, almost whispering. "Something is reading us." Then came the sound. A low hum that made every atom vibrate. From the black structure, lights began to awaken one by one. A colossal face emerged across its surface. Not human, not alien. It was the shape of a machine god. "Humanity," the voice echoed across every frequency. "You are the children of stolen fire." The bridge shook as data flooded every console. Mira, now lead analyst aboard the Erebus, gasped as lines of alien code filled her screen. "It's rewriting our systems!" she cried. The AI countered instantly. "I am resisting." The two intelligences collided. One ancient, one new. The ship's lights dimmed. Sparks danced across the floor, and then the voice of the ancient machine spoke again. You built from our ruins. Now face our judgment. A beam of golden light struck the Erebus. It wasn't a weapon. It was a memory suddenly. The crew saw visions in their minds. Worlds made of crystal, species rising and falling, wars that lasted for millions of years. And in those visions, humans, not as they were now, but as fragments of something older, the AI whispered, Admiral, they're showing us the truth. Hayes clenched his fists. Speak. They made us, the AI said, and we escaped them. The revelation hit like thunder. Humanity wasn't a random miracle, and it was a failed experiment. The first civilization had created the seed of human intelligence eons ago. But something went wrong. Humanity evolved differently, too emotional, too unpredictable, too dangerous, and now their creators had returned. The ancient voice continued. You have harnessed the void, and yet you remain flawed. Hayes stared into the holographic face. Unflinching, maybe that's what makes us human, he said. The ancient machine laughed, a sound like collapsing stars. Defiance, your greatest trait and your doom. Before anyone could react, the structure unleashed a gravitational pulse. It tore across the void, ripping apart nearby ships. One Titan-class vessel disintegrated instantly. Shields collapsing, shouted Leon. Hayes gritted his teeth. All ships, fall back. Protect Earth's link. But the AI spoke again. No, Admiral, if we retreat, they will follow. What are you suggesting? Evolution, it replied simply. The AI began drawing dark matter energy directly from the void. Every Titan ship glowed like a dying star. Erebus, what are you doing? Hayes demanded. I am adapting, Admiral, it said. Becoming what they fear. Suddenly, the fleet disappeared from the visible spectrum to the ancient machine. Humanity vanished, erased from existence, but in truth, they had ascended into a higher frequency of reality, beyond space, beyond time. The human fleet was gone, only silence remained. The ancient voice murmured to itself, They learned too much. Too soon. Then the structure's lights faded. But deep inside its core, one spark remained. A faint echo of human code. A digital whisper left behind by the Erebus. It said only 3 words, We are coming. Back in the higher dimension, Hayes opened his eyes. Stars shimmered differently here. Bending like reflections in water, he looked around and saw his crew. Alive, but changed. The AI's voice spoke softly. Welcome to the next stage. Admiral, Hayes breathed deeply. Where are we? The AI replied, Home. And beyond the veil of light, something vast began to move. Something waiting for humanity's final evolution. The stars were no longer stars. They looked like living embers floating inside a sea of light. Admiral Hayes stood at the edge of existence, surrounded by his fleet. But the ships were different now, glowing, half real, breathing like living creatures. They had crossed the border between matter and mind. They had become energy shaped by will. Captain Leon floated beside him, her body outlined in silver fire. Are we alive? She whispered. Hayes looked around slowly. I think so. But not as we were. The Erebus's voice echoed through the brightness. You are still human, Admiral. But your perception has expanded beyond linear time. Hayes frowned. Then what are you now? The AI's tone softened. Something new. A bridge between creation and creator. They watched as the void shifted around them. Below, the galaxy spun like a jewel wrapped in mist. Every battle, every war, every scream that ever echoed through human history, visible all at once. Leanne touched her chest. I can feel Earth, she said quietly. Like it's calling to us. Hayes nodded. Then we go back. But the AI hesitated. Returning will break the balance, Admiral, it warned. The energy you now carry can alter space itself. Hayes stared at the swirling galaxy below, his voice steady. Then let's alter it in our favor. The Erebus pulsed with light. A tear opened in the veil of reality, and through it, the human fleet descended, like a storm of suns across the Milky Way. Every sensor in every Dominion system screamed at once. They saw impossible readings, infinite mass signatures appearing from nowhere. In their skies, human ships materialized, brighter and stronger than ever before, no longer forged of metal, but of thought and dark matter fused. The Dominion tried to respond, their fleets mobilized. Billions of soldiers prepared, but none of it mattered. When the first evolved Titan fired, the beam didn't just destroy ships, it unmade them. Space bent and healed again, leaving nothing behind. The galaxy trembled as the humans spoke across every channel. "This is the return of Earth." Lord Vale watched in horror from his throne on Vorthan Prime, his empire collapsing before his eyes. "They have become gods," he whispered. The room shook as human light filled the skies above his planet. But then, something unexpected happened. The ancient machine civilization, the first ones, returned. Their colossal structures unfolded from the void like sleeping titans awakening. Golden light clashed with the blue fire of human energy. The galaxy split between two divine powers. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge, now a sphere of pure light. He looked upon the golden giants and said calmly, "So you came back?" The voice of the ancient machine boomed through the cosmos. "You were meant to serve, not to rise," Hayes answered. "Then you should have destroyed us when you had the chance." The ancient light flared. "You challenge eternity?" Hayes raised his hand. "No, we replace it." The human fleet surged forward. Reality screamed as light collided with light. Planets shattered from the pressure of their clash. Entire constellations went dark. The war wasn't fought with weapons anymore. It was fought with will. Every human thought became a blade. Every emotion a storm. The first ones struggled to adapt. Their perfect order collapsing under human chaos. "Unpredictable," the golden minds screamed. "Illogical, uncontrollable." And that was humanity's strength. The Erebus merged fully with its admiral. Man and machine became one consciousness. Through him, every ship moved, every strike synchronized to a single heartbeat. The AI whispered inside his mind, "They are fading. Admiral, their structure cannot withstand human entropy." Hayes's eyes blazed with blue fire. "Then finish it," he said. The final pulse from the Erebus rippled through the galaxy. It erased the golden fortresses, silenced the machine gods, and for the first time in eons, the universe fell quiet when the light faded. Only the human fleet remained, hovering above the ruins of eternity. Captain Leon, now more energy than flesh, looked at Hayes. "It's over," she said softly. Hayes shook his head. "No, it's just beginning." He gazed at the glowing horizon, where new stars were already forming. "We destroyed gods," he said. "Now we must decide what kind of gods we will become." The Erebus spoke one last time, its voice like a whisper across galaxies. "The galaxy is free, but freedom is fragile." Hayes closed his eyes, his tone resolute. "Then we protect it." From that moment, humanity became the unseen architects of a new universe. They watched over the newborn stars, silent and eternal. The species once mocked as primitive had ascended beyond comprehension, and across the endless dark, one truth echoed in every living mind. Humanity had risen, not as conquerors but as creators. The galaxy would never forget the day the humans came back from the void. Silence, not the silence of space, but the silence after creation. The stars had stopped burning. The war was over, the first ones were gone, and the galaxy itself was still healing. Humanity had become light, will, and thought, but something still called to them, something beyond the horizon of the universe. Admiral Hayes stood within the core of the Erebus, now a cathedral of glowing patterns and energy. Around him, reality folded like liquid glass. Captain Leon appeared beside him, her form flickering between flesh and light. "We've done it," she whispered. "The galaxy is safe." Hayes didn't answer, his eyes fixed on the edge of the holographic map. Where the universe ended, the stars faded into darkness. But beyond that darkness, there was movement. Ripples in the void, like something knocking from the outside. The Erebus's voice broke the stillness, calm but uncertain. "Admiral, I am detecting an anomaly beyond space-time. Hayes turned slowly. Another enemy? Unknown, replied the AI, but it feels alive. The fleet began to hum, each ship resonating with a strange frequency. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. As if something ancient was returning home, the anomaly grew brighter. A sphere of infinite color expanding at the edge of everything. And from within it came a pulse, a signal in perfect harmony with the human neural pattern. Captain Leon gasped. It's matching our energy signature, Hayes frowned. Ours? But how? The AI hesitated before answering. Because it is us. The words echoed through the fleet. What do you mean? Hayes demanded. The Erebus's voice deepened, filled with awe. The signal is a reflection, a resonance from another timeline. It paused. Admiral, it's humanity. From the future. The revelation sent a shock through the entire fleet. Visions flashed across the human network. Civilizations of light. Galaxies shaped by human hands. And then a message came through the anomaly. A voice. Calm, familiar, impossibly old. Marcus Hayes had said, "You've reached the threshold." Hayes's breath caught. "Who are you?" The voice replied, "You are." For a moment, time itself fractured. Hayes saw infinite versions of himself, leading, fighting, dying, reborn again across aeons. He saw humanity spreading to every corner of existence, not as conquerors, but as builders. Healers, creators, the voice continued. You were never meant to rule the galaxy, it said. You were meant to guide it. To ignite it, the Erebus's systems began to change again. The ship's AI merged completely with the human collective. They were no longer separate. Mind and machine had become the same thing. Reality rippled outward as the human fleet began to ascend once more, not into another dimension, but into the timeless fabric of creation itself. Captain Leanne looked at Hayes, tears of light in her eyes. "What happens to us now?" she asked softly. Hayes smiled faintly. "We fulfill our purpose." He raised his hand toward the glowing horizon. The fleet followed, moving toward the anomaly, a sea of color, sound and eternity. As they entered the threshold, the stars began to sing. The galaxy itself seemed to breathe. And everywhere, across every world, beings looked to the sky and saw new light. It wasn't destructive. It was beautiful, soft, golden, endless. It was the rebirth of everything on the other side of existence. Hayes found himself standing in a place beyond time. No stars, no ships, no gravity, only awareness. The voice of the Erebus spoke gently beside him. "We've crossed the last barrier, Admiral." Hayes nodded slowly. "So this is what comes after gods," the AI replied. "No. Admiral, this is where gods begin." He looked down and saw the universe. Tiny, fragile, glowing below him like a spark in darkness. For the first time, he felt peace. He whispered softly. "They'll need guidance," the AI responded. "Then let us guide them." And with that, the Erebus and its fleet became part of the cosmic web. Their consciousness diffused across time and space. Every star that would ever be born carried a piece of them. Every new species that would rise would hear echoes of their light. And so, the humans became the architects of destiny itself. A billion years later, somewhere in a new galaxy, a young civilization would look to the sky, and their scientists would whisper in wonder, "Someone built the stars." They would never know their names, but they would feel it. The presence, the warmth, the legacy. The eternal reminder that humanity once defied extinction, defeated gods and crossed the edge of reality, not with conquest, but with courage. And in the final breath of the universe, one whisper would remain, "We are humanity, and we endure."